This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
All right. Well, we talked a lot about this during the pandemic. Of course, the supply chain crunch, all the things that have chips in them. And we saw that have some really serious situations because the supply chain, when it comes to chips, just wasn't happening, at least wasn't certainly keeping up with demand. So everything like cars, washing machines, refrigerators, we don't think about it, but everything, folks, has got chips in it.
Well, it turns out the same thing goes for motors. They're not just in the stuff of like electric cars and elevators. We got medical devices, renewable energy, robotics, automation, transportation, consumer electronics, HVAC systems, Carol, like heaters and air conditioners. Those all have motors.
Yeah.
So motors are everywhere.
Yeah, they are. So we've got with us Brian Casey, the CEO of ECM PCB Stator Tech. It's a company that designs specialty electric motors and the software that makes them. And really delighted to have with us Brian. He's joining us on Zoom from Massachusetts. Brian, welcome. First of all, give us a little bit more of an idea specifically. We're talking about these motors, the software, but we hear motors and we think one thing, but tell us exactly what you guys are up to.
First off, Carol and Tim, thank you so much for having me on. And I think it was only fitting that I come in after Yabba Dabba Doo time. So
you're welcome.
even the Scooby-Doo show uses motors. ECM's offering is we taking software and allowing people to design their own motors. And that's everyone from large enterprises that are fully integrating so they can, as you guys opened up, get rid of the supply chain kind of issues and concerns that they had during the pandemic. So it really creates a unique opportunity to have all these motors printed basically through our software.
Gil, I want to talk about that development process. I mean, forgive me, I don't know a ton about the motor development process, but I do understand that you at CES unveiled some new software that's really going to change the way, at least according to you, that electric motors are developed and manufactured. So talk to me about the problem that you've solved here, the problem that you're trying to solve. What needed to be fixed in the manufacturing and development process?
Oh, I think what needed to be fixed is kind of is more of like a macro kind of evolution, where there really hasn't been anything kind of unique or new in the motor world. And as we move towards, as you opened up with Tim, like sustainability, electrification, that requires a more exacting and a more nimble type of offering. And through software, we're able to leverage printed circuit board manufacturing and create very exact motor specifications and motors for end-use applications, which allows innovators and engineers to kind of solve problems very rapidly.
It's interesting, and you shared with our producer some research, but the need, and there's a line in some of the background material that you sent, the need for specialized electric motors is an overlooked technology trend. The world will require billions of specialized motors annually in every vertical imaginable in a sector valued at over $200 billion a year. So money talks in our investing audience. One of the things we always like when we have a guest on is tell us why they should care about what you are doing. What is it that they need to know and understand?
I think it's the disruption that's going to occur. I think big motor OEMs and there's always going to be a place for traditional motors there where you order through a catalog or you order through a specification. But when you have, the emergence of the internet, the emergence of new kind of fast speed chips, and people innovating very quickly, they need that response time. And in order to fulfill that, that's where ECM comes into play. And the analogy would be in the music industry, when the Beatles and the Stones were recording, they were using 8 tracks and 16-track recording. And now you have music artists that are doing everything on their laptop, right? And they're all doing that through software. And that's really kind of, that turned that industry upside down. And even at CES, that opened up our eyes. I mean, our booth was just jam-packed for 4 days straight. And we had everyone from large, Fortune 100 companies that were there kind of kicking the tires to what I would call one-off, consultants and engineers that are looking for new ways to get their robotics, startups off the ground and their medical device companies off the ground. So ECM's PCB Stator Tech enables that. So it's a powerful kind of disruptive tool that I think is going to really kind of turn things upside down.
And is the tool software?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So the software allows users to do exact specifications for what they want for a physical motor, and then the end of the product of the software creates what they call a Gerber file, and that file gets sent to any printed circuit board house in the world, and we're able to print these stators, and then these stators go into mechanical systems that become as the traditional kind of motor that you'd see here. And what's great about that, the ubiquitousness of the software, is that you can print these stators anywhere in the world. So if you have a production facility in Chicago, you can
Right.
print them right there.
It's so
If you have a
interesting
facility in
because
Germany-
we talk so much about chips, right? We say chips are in everything, but if it's some kind of mechanical device, whether it's a robot or something else, like you're going to need some type of motor, and that's where you guys come in, right? It's kind of there's got to be that connective tissue, if you will, and that's what you guys are up to.
Absolutely, that's spot on, Carol. Like, well, we had a Scandinavian company that makes robotic applications for exoskeletons, and from thought to finish, was 8 weeks, and they were able to put a prototype motor on one of their devices, and actually had an actual patient using it, right? Within 8 weeks. And then they were able to model that and say, hey, we want to have a little bit more torque here. We want to have a little more power. And that direct kind of instant feedback, you can only do that with what I would call dynamic modeling through software.
Well, I connected the dots. My dad was an engineer. We talked a lot about how things worked, and he took apart a lot of things at home while we were growing up. So,
Not gonna lie, Brian, it also helped when you held up the props.
our whole control room
I
was
was like, oh, that's what you do. So if you're watching us on YouTube, there's some great images right now that you can see of what exactly Brian Casey is talking about.
I do want to ask you, who are your biggest customers? Give me an idea.
So, a little bit of we're kind of protected with some NDAs. Everyone wants to keep this great secret to themselves where they kind of get out in front of it.
Fair.
But very large HVAC companies, some robotics companies, medical device companies, what I would call electronics manufacturing companies. We have a partnership with Celestica. They were early adopters and a very innovative company. They've been able to really kind of exploit the technology for their customers and clients, and everything. Also what I would call haptics. So people that are doing
Yeah.
cinematography and
And
gaming.
so it's like all over the place. You guys are private, right? I've got that right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought we had checked and stuff. So obviously, so your numbers and everything are private, but give us an idea, just so that we understand the business, what kind of growth you're anticipating over the next 12 months. So what it tells us about the business, and then what it tells us about the business environment.
Great question, Carol. So, back in 2018, 2019, it was really still in the lab and the thought process, and we're still building the code. And revenue has doubled, or maybe more than doubled, year after year since that. We're expecting another kind of what I would call exponential growth this year. But looking at the turnout that we had at CES, it could be even larger than that. And some of the adoption is where the revenue is created. So if we have a large, let's say, Fortune 100 company that wants to vertically integrate, and they're using the software and they're creating their own designs and they're building their own motors, well, sometimes it takes a while for that to be digested. So
Yeah.
we have pretty good predictable future revenues going forward, and it's just fun to see.
Just 10 seconds, 15 seconds left. What would you describe the economic environment right now, or business environment, just quickly, based on what you are seeing?
Yeah, we're pretty optimistic. We feel like things are what I would call kind of quieted down. The interest rates have improved a little bit. So, but as far as like capital investing in tech, we're really busy, and we've been very fortunate. People aren't holding back. They're releasing their capital budgets to try projects with us.
Got it.
So we're pretty bullish for the next foreseeable future.
Really fun to talk with you, and I love somebody who gets a Flintstones reference and also has a prop. So Brian, thank you so much. Be well. Brian Casey there, CEO of ECM PCB Stator.